Good evening. This is Dr. David Tam, President and CEO here at Beebe Healthcare. I'm alone in my office. I'm taking my mask off because everybody here at Beebe Healthcare continues to practice the safe things that we have done throughout this pandemic. For over 104 years, Beebe Healthcare has been Sussex County's trusted partner in healthcare. And we are here to provide excellent healthcare to the people who live, work, and visit our beautiful county. We're faced continually with an ongoing pandemic, and it's challenging every facet of our lives as we know it. I want you to know that the dedicated and highly skilled caregivers here at Beebe Healthcare are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to continue to ensure that you and your family get the very best health care that you deserve here in our part of the beautiful state of Delaware and in Sussex County. Part of our role, though, is not just about providing health care here at the Margaret H. Rollins campus or in our clinics or in our labs or in our imaging centers, but also to ensure that we educate you and provide you with the very best, most up-to-date scientific information so that we can partner with you as a community to do everything necessary, in this case, to fight the pandemic and keep people safe and healthy. And so tonight, this town hall is designed to help give you all the information that you need moving forward into what is really going to be a pivotal time in our third wave of this pandemic, and that is our Thanksgiving week, and how we can all work together to reduce the rate of infections and hospitalizations here in our part of Sussex County. So you'll hear from Dr. Bill Chasinoff, who you've seen before. He's a local Sussex Countyan, infectious disease expert who has really led the charge in how we work together to fight the pandemic. He's going to share with you the most up-to-date information, including the plans that we have for COVID vaccination, as well as other things related to the pandemic. For me, as your CEO, I just want to share with you that we still need to continue, even if there's a vaccine, those things that were so important to us for the last 8 months. Wash your hands, wear a mask, watch your distance, and now there's a G, which is get vaccinated. And those are the things that I'll talk about a little bit as I close after Dr. Chasinoff. But for now, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Bill Chasinoff to talk more about where we are with the COVID-19 pandemic and all the things that we are doing here at Beebe Healthcare to keep all of you safe. Dr. Chasinoff.
I want to thank Dr. Tam for those kind words, and I also want to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us tonight. Before I start, it's important to note that some of the things that we talk about over the next several minutes, everyone has to realize is a rapidly evolving situation. The things that I might tell you at 5:11 on Monday, November 23rd, could even be different within an hour or two, so please keep that in mind. The way to stay updated with any new information, be it from the COVID-19 virus, the COVID-19 vaccine, or for other things COVID related, is really to go to the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention website, the Delaware Department of Public Health website, and of course, Beebe Healthcare's Facebook page and website. We will continue to share with you the most up-to-date information as it comes to us. And it is important to recognize that this information changes at least daily and sometimes multiple times a day. Over the next several minutes, I hope to cover really some 5 broad topics that I think will be interesting to all of you. And if you can bear with me, I hope you will walk away from this feeling a little bit more comfortable about where we are and where things stand. First of all, I'm going to start with the latest updates in the COVID-19 virus. I will obviously touch on what's happening in our community, the state of Delaware, the United States, and the world. I then want to move over to the vaccine and talk about the process and the processes that are used to develop and approve vaccines in the United States, then to talk about the safety and effectiveness of vaccines, how we have a plan to distribute the COVID-19 vaccine, and why it's important when the vaccine is available to you to consider getting the COVID-19 vaccine. So let's start with COVID-19 updates. So the state of Delaware, like the majority of the United States and including several places throughout the world, have increasing numbers of new COVID-19 cases. With these increasing numbers of new COVID-19 cases, unfortunately, the number of hospitalizations continue to rise as well. In the state of Delaware, we are seeing an increased rate of hospitalizations. We have not seen these type of numbers since really early June, end of May. So we are seeing in our hospital systems right now increased number of sick people requiring hospitalization. Unfortunately, the United States has passed a landmark where we have over 12 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. In the last few days, the United States has surpassed over 250,000 deaths attributed to COVID-19. I want to put this in perspective. Our last major global pandemic occurred with the Spanish flu in 1918, just over 100 years ago. In that pandemic, the world lost at least 21 million people because of the Spanish flu pandemic. Out of those 21 million, approximately 549,000 deaths occurred in the United States. Interestingly, those deaths occurred in waves, very similar to what we're seeing with COVID-19. There was 3 waves that started in 1918 that led to those amount of deaths. This was, of course, before there was an influenza vaccine. With the mention of vaccines, let's talk a little bit about the history of vaccines. I find this extremely interesting, and I hope you will find that it's worth a few minutes of your time to bear with me. I promise it's not a boring history lesson, and I hope that at least it piques some of your interest. I'm going to take us back to the late 1700s, in a time where a disease called smallpox was still around. Smallpox in the late 1700s was a significant infection that caused a lot of death and had a death rate of up to 10+% for anyone that contracted it. And that's probably a very conservative percentage, meaning that 1 out of every 10 person who unfortunately contracted smallpox died. Interestingly, around that time, there was another disease that seemed to act like smallpox, but seemed to affect cows, and that was known as cowpox. Now, back in the time of the 1700s, it was generally milkmaids who milked the cows. Some of these milkmaids, interestingly, ended up having pox marks very similar to smallpox, but these were coming from the cows, and hence the name cowpox. In 1796, there was an English physician scientist named Dr. Edward Jenner, and he noticed that when these milkmaids contracted cowpox, they never seemed to develop the more deadly disease known as smallpox. So in an experiment in May of 1796, Dr. Jenner took material from cowpox blisters on a milkmaid, her name was Sarah, and she had contracted cowpox from a cow now known as Blossom. So basically, Dr. Jenner inoculated the cowpox material from the blisters on Sarah's hands into the gardener's son, whose name was James Phipps. Now, James Phipps developed a very mild disease that had some fever. He overall didn't feel well for a few days, but recovered with no trouble. Now, what happened then would not happen now, but then Dr. Jenner took inoculated material, so basically purulent material from a smallpox, which is the disease that kills humans, took some of that material from a smallpox blister and inoculated James Phipps, who was an 8-year-old child. And what he discovered was that Mr. Phipps, James Phipps, did not get sick with smallpox. Because of this experiment, Dr. Edward Jenner has actually been dubbed the father of immunology and the father of vaccines. Because of this experiment and significant hard work of many, many other people throughout time, we can say that smallpox does not exist in this world because of vaccines. Vaccinations eradicated smallpox. The next disease that's supposed to be eradicated because of vaccines is the polio virus. Now, this has been a decades-long effort, and we are still optimistic that we will be able to eradicate polio virus. I think most of you, but maybe some do not, realize that we have vaccines for many things right now. We obviously have vaccines for viruses, including the flu virus that I had mentioned before, the measles virus, the mumps virus, the virus that causes chickenpox and shingles. We have a virus for yellow fever. We also have vaccines for all the viruses that I mentioned, but we also have vaccines for bacteria that can cause meningitis, pneumonias, and also bloodstream infections. Because of this, we have saved numerous, if not millions of lives because of these vaccines. More specifically, I want to switch gears after that little history lesson, and I want to talk more specifically about the COVID-19 vaccine. I think we need to start off by stating that, all vaccines, not all vaccines are 100% effective, so please keep that in mind. Unlike the 18th century with Dr. Edward Jenner, things have significantly changed. When it comes to medications and vaccine safety, we no longer pick an 8-year-old child and inoculate them with a disease, hoping that we then inoculate them with another disease to see what happens. In the scientific and medical community, we have rules and regulations and many governing organizations that help guide researchers, scientists, pharmaceutical companies, in making sure that safety is the #1 priority throughout this entire process. I'm going to show you a chart. I'm going to hope to show you a chart that has a lot of colors on it. It's very colorful, and this chart can be found on the Center for Disease Control, and it is titled The Vaccine Life Cycle. If you can see that chart, which I'm also going to hold up, just in case it does not come across very well, I want you to really take notice that each area here, there it is, that's perfect. I want you to take notice that every single color here is a checkpoint. This is a checkpoint that guides all medications, including vaccines and other therapies, through development to make sure that we, including myself, as someone who may end up receiving a vaccine and the COVID-19 vaccine, that there are multiple points in place to make sure that this is safe. If it is not safe, at any one of these check marks, you will notice that it can stop. It can absolutely stop, and the development of that vaccine no longer moves forward. Now, this vaccine life cycle that I'm showing you, like I said, is from the Centers for Disease Control. And this is what we use in the United States. And I do want to point, if you can look to the right of that chart, which is in the blue, the darker blue, and the purple, that there is an FDA review process. There is another governing body known as the ACIP that reviews all the scientific literature and the safety protocols up to that point. And then even after a vaccine is released, there is continuous monitoring of the safety of that vaccine. I again want to stress that all phases of this multicolored chart are focused on safety, and this is safety for you and I, which is extremely important. There are multiple organizations that look out for our safety. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's also important to note that not all vaccines are 100% effective. Vaccines range in their ability to prevent illness and death to all of us. For instance, The seasonal flu vaccine, we hear every year how effective it is. Sometimes it's only 40% effective. Then there's other vaccines like the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine that are consistently greater than 90% effective. Some vaccines you only receive one dose. Some vaccines you receive 2 or even more doses for them to be successful. Other vaccines you may receive a booster for, such as the tetanus and diphtheria vaccine, which we normally get boosted for every 7 to 10 years. Specifically, I want to move to the COVID-19 vaccines that are in development. First and foremost, the goal of the COVID-19 vaccines are really to prevent serious illness and death to myself, to ourselves, to our family, to our friends, our community, which is talking about our local community, our regional community, and ultimately the world, because we are all in one large community. As more and more people become infected with COVID-19, and as the vaccines are released and more people obtain the vaccine, our community, the country, and ultimately the world will end up reaching a point of something that you may have heard from in the news called herd immunity. Herd immunity is not a new concept. This is not something that was just created with COVID-19. This concept has been around for decades. And basically, herd immunity is when a high enough proportion of the population are immune to a disease that it provides a baseline of protection to the entire community. This is how I like to explain it. If there are 10 people in the room and I am one of those 10 people, let's say that I did not receive my COVID-19 vaccine, but the other 9 people received the COVID-19 vaccine. If they all have protection from that, because I am with them and they should not have COVID-19 because they are immune, I am protected from COVID-19. So as you see, if there's one person out of 10 that doesn't have a vaccine, the risk of that one person getting that disease, or in this example, COVID-19, is significantly less than if I was in a room where only 4 people had the vaccine and 6 people did not. Obviously, our risk of getting the disease, or in this case, COVID-19, is significantly higher. What's important to note that Dr. Tam had alluded to as well is that until herd immunity occurs, there's one thing that has consistently been said throughout the beginning of this pandemic, and that is wash your hands, watch your distance, and please wear a mask. Those are the things that we know will keep ourselves, our family, our friends, and our community safe. And it's important to remember that. We're going to take just a second so that Sandy can switch off to Jamie for interpretation. Hi, Jamie. So for those who are interested, I do want you to look back at the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic that cost the world over 20 million lives. Despite this being 100 years ago, actually over 100 years ago, when you look back, the one measure that they saw that decreased illness and death was face coverings, which are our masks. While it seems weird and strange and really uncomfortable sometimes, masks can help prevent illness and death, which is extremely important as we move towards the holiday season. When we're talking about vaccine development, I do want to spend a moment because fast track and how fast it seems that this COVID-19 vaccine has been developed makes some people hesitant. And I just want to talk about that process for a couple minutes. So we currently have several vaccines in what we call late stage clinical trials, also known as phase 3 trials. In that chart that I showed you, that was in the green area right before it changes over to blue, before it gets to an FDA review. The leading vaccine that actually has now, as of last week, made it to FDA review is a vaccine that has been developed by 2 companies, one that we have heard of and probably know, known as Pfizer, and the other one known as BioNTech. This is the same vaccine when you hear about this in the news. This is two companies that have come together to put resources together to try to expeditiously create a vaccine. Pfizer, like I said, is probably a more well-known company to us in the United States than BioNTech. Pfizer also makes medications that probably sound familiar, such as ampicillin, which is an antibiotic. And they also make another antibiotic known as azithromycin, which is in a Z-Pack, which many of us have heard of. This Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine has completed its phase 3 trials. There were greater than 45,000 participants from over 150 countries from all different demographics, including ages and ethnicities, that were a part of this trial. What's important to know is that as this moves towards FDA review, it has now reached its next checkpoint. There is another vaccine that is ending its phase 3 trials, and this has been more of a buzz in the last few days. This vaccine is made by a company known as Moderna. Moderna is probably less known to many of us, but this is also a very big company that has created vaccines in the past. They have received grant money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for HIV research, and they also work on many therapies for rare diseases that we don't hear too commonly. Other companies that currently are in phase 3 trials include a vaccine from AstraZeneca, and also one from Johnson & Johnson. And there are several other companies with COVID-19 vaccines and some part of those phased trials that we talked about. It's important to note that while there is a push for all of us to get back to normal and to get out of this pandemic, and we all feel like things are pushing through fast, these same phases and stages of approval for the COVID-19 vaccine are the same phases and stages that any vaccine or really medication or other therapy have to go through to be approved. As I had mentioned, the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine had over 45,000 participants that both had received the 2 series vaccine at least 2 months ago. So we do have a trial that has some time on our side, which is extremely helpful. One of the things as I round in the hospital that I hear very often is, I'm not sure about the vaccine. I feel like it's coming out too fast. Is there enough science behind it? Are they skipping parts of the trial? And I just want to state that the answer is no. The same clinical trials for these vaccines as any drug, vaccine, or therapy are being followed. And I refer back to that color chart that I displayed a few minutes ago. What the United States and other countries have done to kind of expedite the vaccine is that generally, from a business standpoint, what happens is that after a vaccine reaches phase 3, goes to FDA review, then goes through another board review known as the ACIP, that's when they start to manufacture in large scale this vaccine or the vaccine that they are producing. What the United States has done is that as vaccines reach that final phase 3 trial before it goes to the FDA review, they actually start the large process manufacturing of this vaccine that normally comes after, but is actually happening at the same time. So with that being said, we have all this vaccine that's being produced, and if it does not make its way through FDA approval or other approval, then at this point, all that vaccine will be destroyed. That will not be distributed. But if this vaccine makes it through the FDA review and the other approvals, we're ready to go with distribution. And that's part of the reason why it seems so fast and why you hear in the news that we may have vaccine even as early as next month. You know, because we live in the year 2020 and not in 1796 or in 1918, the advances that we've made in technology also allow us these advances in manufacturing, which allows us to expedite things quite significantly. So I want to switch gears just a touch here and talk about the distribution process when the vaccine will be available. So as I had mentioned, the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine has made its way to FDA for FDA review. It has not been approved at this point, so it's important to know that. If it goes through the FDA approval, the second gateway will be the American Committee on Immunization Practices. And they will take all the scientific literature, they will look at the clinical trial, they will look at the safety profile, and then they will make recommendations and approve this vaccine or not approve this vaccine. And I think it's extremely important to understand that the ACIP is an independent body made up of physicians and scientists and others that have no financial gain from Pfizer or BioNTech. Their complete reason for existence is to make recommendations on the vaccine and ensure its safety. With that being said, I do want to talk just a moment about how the distribution of a vaccine, when available, is going to work. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have created a playbook known as the COVID-19 Vaccination Playbook. So from the Centers for Disease Control, which I consider high up as almost as the federal government, from there, the state of Delaware has created their own playbook called the Delaware COVID-19 Vaccination Playbook that has received feedback from the Centers for Disease Control on our state initiative for distribution. Now, Beebe Healthcare has taken from the CDC playbook and the state of Delaware playbook, and we have an operational plan that we are calling the Beebe Healthcare COVID-19 Vaccination Playbook. So from these playbooks, we have a structure in place in order to distribute vaccine to at least our team members and potentially the community if necessary when available, to ensure that everyone gets a COVID-19 vaccine that is willing to have it as outlined by the federal government in the state of Delaware. I will admit, some of the uncertainty is we're not sure how much vaccine we're going to get, and some of that uncertainty lies with the state as they are unsure of how much vaccine that they are going to get. And as our distribution comes from the state, you can tell that as that rolls down, we don't have those answers of the number of vaccines at this point. I do want everyone in the community to know that the state of Delaware, along with Beebe Healthcare, are working on plans that when a vaccine is available, that we have a structure in place to ensure that we are following the guidelines to get everyone vaccinated timely. You know, it's important to consider when the vaccine's available if you think that the vaccine, about getting the vaccine. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times, again, when I'm rounding, I have a lot of people say to me, should I get the vaccine? What's the benefit of getting the vaccine at this point? What if everyone else gets the vaccine? And because of this, I think it's extremely important to realize that by you getting the vaccine, your family getting the vaccine, your friends getting the vaccine, the community getting the vaccine, you basically are trying to introduce that herd immunity that will eventually keep us all protected and provide a blanket of immunity to first our local community and then our regional community, and then branch out until hopefully the whole world has a blanket immunity known as herd immunity. I get asked a lot, Dr. Chasinoff, when I'm on the floors, will you get the COVID-19 vaccine? I get put on the spot all the time. And my answer to that is that the vaccine meets all the phases and all the stages and all the reviews, and the clinical trials all say that this is a safe vaccine. I am absolutely going to get that vaccine when it's available to me. And I think that's extremely important to know, that even though things seem fast, it's because of the process modifications of the manufacturing that make this really seem faster than most vaccines. It is not a speed up or skipping of the science. For the last couple minutes, I just wanted to end on a couple thoughts before I turn it over to Dr. Tam. You know, we have fortunately moved away from the time when a scientist like Dr. Edward Jenner could inoculate an 8-year-old boy because that happened to be his gardener's son. I mean, we have moved away from the times where there's no governing body. In the United States, we have rules and regulations and several governing bodies that help us to make sure that these vaccines, these medications, therapies are as safe as possible when they're introduced to us, the public. And I think it's extremely important to remember that. So again, you know, as these vaccines seem to have an expeditious movement to them, they are going through all the safety protocols that any other medication and vaccine would go through. I want to wish everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving. In these times, like I mentioned before, it's important to remember that if you do choose to have family and friends over for Thanksgiving, to please wear masks, watch your distance, and please make sure that you're washing your hands. Please follow the safety recommendations that are set forth by the Centers for Disease Control, State of Delaware Public Health, and what we have published through Beebe Healthcare's Facebook and website. We want everyone to have a safe and enjoyable holiday. And one of the things that I had recognized after Dr. Tam had spoke earlier is Beebe Healthcare has been here for 104 years. That puts us back to 1916 when we were founded. This is the second pandemic that Beebe Healthcare will go through. And because of you, our community, and the support, we will get through this and we will come out stronger. And I thank everyone for everything that you're doing to keep all of us safe. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. David Tam, our President and CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I understand that there are some questions that have come up. I've been kind of watching my Facebook Live posts. So Christina is our moderator. Do you want to read them so that Dr. Chasinoff might have a chance to answer them?
Yes, absolutely. So Dr. Chasinoff, you have them in front of you. So you have the choice of looking on your phone and answering it that way, or you can ask me to read them for you. Which would you like, Dr. Chasinoff?
I am happy to read them so everyone hears the question, and then I can answer if that works for everyone.
That would be great. Thank you. I'm going to put you back on the screen if that's okay with you, Dr. Tam.
Oh, that's fine with me. He's much better looking than I am.
Again, another very nice compliment from Dr. Tam, so thank you. Reading the questions, and I'm going to do my best to interpret some of those to make sure that I believe I'm answering what's being asked. Question is, would you have to quarantine after receiving the vaccine? These vaccines, at least the first few that I mentioned, are not live vaccines. So you would not have to, the current recommendations is that you would not have to quarantine after receiving the vaccines. Now, obviously, as I said, things change on a daily basis. So the information I provide to you right now, as vaccines become approved through the FDA and vetted through the ACIP, if there are recommendations that do state self-quarantine, then obviously that would override anything I say, but I do not foresee that being an issue. How long do you quarantine after coming in contact with a positive person, and how long does the positive person need to quarantine? So if you come in contact and you are deemed a high-risk exposure, meaning that you have spent significant time with someone who has tested positive and or has symptoms of COVID-19, then you are asked to quarantine for 14 days. During those 14 days, it is extremely important to remember that you are monitoring yourself as a high risk, as someone who is a high risk exposure, to ensure that you do not develop any symptoms that could be COVID-19. If you develop symptoms, then you no longer are truly in a self-quarantine mode. You are now in a self-isolation mode, which is the second part of this question, which is, if someone is positive, how long do they need to self-isolate for until they are allowed to leave isolation? So there's a little bit of nuance to the answer to this question, but most people fall into the 10-day mark. So as long as they are improved and they have not had fever for over 24 to 48 hours, after 10 days, they are generally able to self-isolate. Now, the Division of Public Health for the state of Delaware helps guide that, and it's important to recognize the fact that they generally will give a date of when someone is able to come out of self-isolation. There are certain circumstances that 10 days may end up being 20 days, and there are certain circumstances that you may even be in self-isolation for greater than 20 days. But for the majority of people, it is approximately 10 days. Can you take the vaccine when you have the virus? So if you have the virus at the time, I believe that the recommendations are going to come out that you do not need to, that you should not take the vaccine. The reason I say this is that when I read through the protocol for, and I'm speaking specifically of Pfizer and the BioNTech vaccine, that one of the exclusion criteria is someone who had the virus or had the virus. They were excluded from the trials. So I imagine that they will be excluded from being offered the vaccine initially. Now, I am not the FDA, nor am I the ACIP, and they make the final recommendations. But I do believe that if you have had the virus, they may not recommend you getting the vaccine. Next question, how do they know about long-term side effects if they're pushing the vaccine through? That's a really good question. So when Pfizer and BioNTech took their trial, their phase 3 trial with over 45,000 people to the FDA, it's important to note that the last group or the last cluster of participants had their second dose of vaccine at least 2 months before Pfizer was allowed to take it to the FDA. Now, just because that last group had their last vaccine 2 months before, there were people who had it several months before, which means that it was just not 2 months, it was multiple months before that. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, what you were looking for, but I can say that the safety profiles have been there for several months. Obviously, we will not have years worth of data until the vaccine has been out for years. And to put that into perspective, the virus has not even been around for an entire year. It was started to be discussed in China back in December of 2019. I hope that helped with that question. I have another question about quarantine after receiving the vaccine. As this is not a live vaccine, you should not have to quarantine after that. Next question, are patients receiving the same treatments and protocols the president received? Also another excellent question. So we have the antiviral medication that the president received. That antiviral medication is known as remdesivir with an R. We have been fortunate enough to have that in our hospital for several months. We have also been using steroids. We have been using steroids as early adopters, doing our own our own scouring of research showing the benefit of those. So those two things we do have. Now, there was a monoclonal antibody known as Regeneron, and that's with an R, Regeneron, that President Trump received during his hospitalization that just received FDA emergency use authorization within the last couple days. Rob, it was over the weekend, so no more than 72 hours, I believe. That medication will come to us in an allocated fashion from the government. So we do not have that medication now, but we are prepared for that medication when it is available. So I think that helps answer that question. Will the vaccine need to be readministered every year? At this point, they are recommending with a Pfizer and the BioNTech. Right now, they are recommending a 2-series vaccine. So I received the vaccine today, for instance, and then I have to get another series or another vaccine, which is the same vaccine, in 3 weeks from now. And at this point, that is all what appears to be recommended. How long after taking the vaccine are you immune? Another excellent question. So I'm going to dive into a little bit of nuance here, so bear with me for a minute. So what we do know about the vaccine is that it appears to decrease the chance of someone becoming severely ill or dying from COVID-19 after they receive the vaccine. The immunity that comes from this may not mean that you are fully not able to get the virus. It just means that you will not become as sick, and it significantly decreases your chance of dying if you were exposed to the virus. So how long after taking the vaccine are you immune? Normally we say about 7 to 14 days. And I'm pulling that information from what we do with the flu. We generally tell people that after they receive their flu vaccine, that it could be about 7 to 14 days before they truly have full immunity from that. So again, that might change, and those recommendations will come with the analysis from the FDA and the ACIP, but that's sort of what will likely show up. And I believe that is all the questions that I have right now. Christina, any more?
We've got one final question, Dr. Chasinoff. If you've had COVID and don't get a vaccine, how long are you immune?
So another $1 million question. What we do know at this point is that you likely have immunity at least for about 3 to 4 months. There's a new study that's come out that shows that immunity may last for 6 to 7 months. So we're just not sure how long that immunity will last if I get the disease or the infection. And then over time, will most people have immunity for their entire life? Will most people have immunity for several months, for several years? Or will there be, will that immunity wane over time, which we do see infections? Unfortunately, I don't think any of us know at this point, but hopefully as more time passes, we will have the answer to that question.
Thank you, Dr. Chasinoff.
Thank you.
We're going to go back over to Dr. Tam for our closing.
Thank you, Christina, and certainly thank you, Dr. Chasinoff. I do have one question also that I got, which is, how is Beebe doing on capacity? Beebe Healthcare is doing well on capacity. Yes, it is true that we have COVID-19 patients in the hospital, but we are doing fine with capacity. We're not even close to where we were in the spring, and we are ready to take care of patients, both with COVID as well as with other healthcare problems. So please feel reassured that we are doing fine with respect to capacity at this point. I'd like to close by just sharing a few things. This is going to be a weird Thanksgiving for many of us. I, for one, am going to have a Thanksgiving with just me and my stepson, Cade, here in Delaware. We're going to have to figure out how to make Thanksgiving dinner. I've heard about someone recommended that I make scrappled turkey, but we'll see how we do it. It's going to be weird not having the entire family, but this is what we have to do because we are at a point where we really are at a pivot in terms of our community and COVID-19. You know, our numbers are going up throughout the country, throughout the state, as Dr. Chasinoff said. We must get to the other side. You know, I have tremendous hope because of the things that are going on. We wanted to make sure and talk about things like therapeutics and about the vaccine. By the way, as soon as the vaccine is out and it's gone through the ACIP and the CDC, and as if Bill Chasinoff says to take it, I will be one of the first ones to take that vaccine, a COVID-19 vaccine, to protect myself, to protect my family, and protect my coworkers and my community. And I hope you hear that loud and clear. But we have things going on. We have things that really shine a light into where we are going into the future. I have so many things to be thankful for. I was looking at my calendar today, and I recognized that 1 year ago, November 23rd, 2019, I was actually here in Lewis interviewing for this job. Now, it's been a long year, obviously, but it's been a good year, and I'm so thankful to the board, to Mr. Herbert as the chair, and everybody else who allowed me to come and work here. I'm thankful for the team. I'm thankful for the community that has embraced us, my family and me, with so much love and affection as we have come across the country to be part of Sussex County and part of our community here in the South Coastal towns. I'm thankful for people like Bill Chasinoff, as well as all the other highly qualified, skilled physicians, clinicians, and practitioners and staff who work so hard every day, 24/7, 365, to provide the most advanced health care to our community. We do things here that can't get done or don't get done at university settings. And yet we have people here who relate directly to the community to make sure that we are serving the community in all things that are related to healthcare. And I'm thankful to be part of that team. I'm also thankful for the fact that we are getting to the point where there are things like vaccinations, where there are more therapeutics than we had at the beginning of the pandemic, and that we have people here who are thinking and working tirelessly to ensure that we provide you with those resources and that we continue to do these town halls as we work forward. I'm thankful for the community support, especially our philanthropic donors. You know, this COVID-19 pandemic did have a significant impact on us financially, but it is people like you and the donors, especially members of the 1916 Club, who have worked so hard to continue to support us through many things, financial donations, donating masks, food, and all that have gotten us to this point. And I am thankful for all of you as you continue to please wear your mask, watch your distance, and wash your hands. And I'm going to add a fourth one now, which is really a G, which is get vaccinated. Flu vaccine still, as well as, of course, when the COVID vaccine is out and ready for the general public, please get vaccinated. So I'm thankful for so many things, despite the fact that it's going to be kind of a weird Thanksgiving. I could say to myself, to all of you, I'm sad that I'm not going to be able to spend Thanksgiving with my mom, who's still all the way out in California in her house, and I'm not going to see her. But I'm thankful that she's healthy and that she hasn't had COVID-19. And so there's all kinds of different ways that we can all look at this. Without sounding preachy, I hope that you will join me in being thankful for where we are and what we are doing and how we can move forward into the future, because there is hope. Remember, Dr. Joydeep Haldar is one of our emergency room physicians. Some of you may have been treated by Dr. Haldar. He told me the other day about a festival that they hold in India. It's called Diwali. It's the Festival of Lights. And I love hearing about it. I loved hearing about it, and I wanted to share it with you because it celebrates something called the victory of light over darkness and the triumph of good over evil. Vaccines are coming. Therapeutics are better. We know better how to take care of patients with COVID-19. The mortality rate is dropping, and we just need to get through these next couple of weeks by washing our hands, watching our distance, wearing a mask, and getting vaccinated so we can get over the hump to the point where there is light after this period of darkness that we have had. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for wanting to learn and understand everything that is going on. And we will continue to update you through these town halls as more information becomes available about the vaccine or about new therapeutics or what's going on here at Beebe Healthcare. The last thing I'll say is don't hesitate to come to us if you need care. If you're worried about whether you're having a stroke or if you're having chest pain or anything else, don't forget that we have done everything possible to make our clinics, our ERs, our labs, imaging centers safe for you. We don't want you to get hurt. We want you to come in and be seen by our physicians and our staff because we care about you. Our job is to take care of Sussex County, all the people who live, work, and visit here. And we hope that this town hall was a little bit of light as we triumph over darkness, and we'll get through it all to the end together. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for trusting us with your care. Have a great day. Have a great Thanksgiving, and see you soon.